Okay, we're going to get started here. It is 8:31. We've got more people joining, but I wanted to kick us off here. First, yeah, I should kick into speaker mode here when you talk, Todd. So I am welcome to the 2023 CMA Day lecture series. This is our final event for 2023. Super excited to have my friend Todd Bookspan here with us as we really wrap things up for the last 2.5 months. And we've been just richly blessed with the speakers that we've had and the knowledge that's been shared, the realtors that have joined us, the lenders that have been here. It's truly been a great event. And as I continually speak to the realtors that I've invited, I keep hearing, great information, great knowledge, and great knowledge has been given. So that's awesome. And we are recording this session. It will be in our CMA Day Facebook page. Remember, that is a closed Facebook page to everybody that has been here. And remember also that you guys can talk one with another through that Facebook page. And we have over 210, 220 people involved in that page. So remember, it's not just a place to hold recordings, but it's also a place to be able to talk one with another. I do want to, I need to make the mic check there. So your mic should be on mute when you join. So if it's not, then please make sure it's on mute. I do want to give kudos here really to the loan officers that we've all kicked this thing off. It was really a mastermind effect or a mastermind group of, was it March, April, when we started talking about doing something special for realtors. And then I brought up the fact of, hey, why don't we do a CMA Day event? And then we reached out to the speakers. So we've got on this call, we've got Anne Marie Edwards from Massachusetts. We've got Dixie Sanders from Texas, Drew Ebner from Ohio, Elizabeth Smith from Florida. And I don't know that Elizabeth's able to join us today. I think I saw she was on a baseball crusade right now with her son. So that's fun. We've got Heath Goodrich from South Carolina, Josh Blair from New Jersey, Lou Graham from Colorado, Scott Smith from Utah, Sean Herrero from California, Steve Calabrese from Florida, and then Susan Dunphy here on my team from Oregon. So grateful to you guys, and grateful for the realtors that you've invited and the impact that you've made upon others. So that's really my mission. My legacy is to be able to make the biggest impact upon others. Today we've got my friend Todd Bookspan. Todd and I met in 2020, I want to say, at a site visit with a mutual friend of ours in California. And I've watched Todd for years. Those that know him know that he's the creator of Win by Noon, which is a great little book here that has a lot of planning techniques and a lot of things to be able to win your day by noon. But Todd also is so much more than just the plan, just the creator of Win by Noon, which of course helps so many people. He's an executive coach, and he's been, I've known of Todd for so many more years, where he is on the Mortgage Coach channel every week, interviews 2 or 3 people every week, it seems like anymore, Todd. And he has his own channel, Win by Noon. I would highly suggest that you get on the Win by Noon channel, watch Todd. Deborah Bird that you met last week, she also is there from time to time interviewing with Todd. And so Todd has been somebody that has been a good friend to me, a good mentor to me, somebody who I can rely upon to give me good advice, sometimes the advice that I may not want to hear, but good advice. So I just want to bring Todd to the forefront here, and thank you so much for joining us, Todd.
Well, no, I'm super excited to be here. And, I love that introduction. Good advice that I don't want to hear. And I think that says a lot. It's funny. I've been speaking since 2016 on productivity, and it's super boring. It's what everyone knows they need, but nobody actually wants to hear about. And so hopefully we can make this a little bit interactive to make sure that it helps you. But I've got a few points I think that'll hopefully add value today. I think one of the things that I find is oftentimes when a coach or someone who's had success in their career shows up, they want to talk about how great they are. And I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of those successes as well from a production perspective and from a coaching perspective. But really, I'm here alongside of you as somebody who has to, put on my pants one leg at a time. And even though I'm the person who gets on stage and talks about how to be more productive and get more done, the reason I do it and the reason I keep talking about it is it's the only way I can keep going myself, right? I didn't just fall into it. I had to figure out how to solve my own problems with procrastination and distraction and really all the things that kept me from the success that I felt like I could achieve. And so what I always tell people is that my mission is to help you achieve your goal, whatever you believe that to be. I don't think every person wants to sell $100 million worth of real estate. But I know that most people who are here probably want to sell a little more than they're currently selling this year. I don't normally say that. Normally I say, people probably want to keep doing what they're currently doing. But it seems to me like most people would like to do a little more than they're doing now, and then really figure out how to do it consistently. And then really hopefully put a bow on it. I know a lot of the speakers who have already spoken. I've interviewed Jimmy Burgess. If any of you guys have the wall thing for CMA A day, that's, my brainchild. And really my goal is to really just help put a bow on this with Walt, with Dixie, with all the other loan officers that are on here, to help you all have a great second half of the year, which, it's kind of crazy that we're already 3 weeks into the second half of 2023. And then just to really help, maybe just if you can take away one idea of something that'll enable you to be just this much more productive, just a little bit more productive, this afternoon, a little more productive tomorrow, because in the end, that's really what it is. We've all got the same, 24 hours a day. We all have the same 7 days a week. And it's just really a matter of, can we actually be a little more productive during it, so that we can then maybe unplug and do something cool like Walt did and go sit and watch the Barbie movie. And so that's really, where I want to go today. I'm always an open book and transparent. I know when you get on a Zoom like this, people tend to want to be quiet and not talk, but I'm fine with distractions. If anyone has any questions, ideas, suggestions, or, wants me to call me out on something, feel free to do so. And what I would say is that I think there's just other lessons that you have all learned, but I think the biggest one always is going to come back to consistency. And the reason I say that is Walt just said there's 200 and something people. How many people are in the Facebook group? 200 and what? Ballpark?
224.
Okay. So out of 224, 29 of you are still here. And so I would tell you that there are definitely some people who have been consistent up till today and have a commitment, right? And I use that word commitment for a reason, but they have another commitment, right? Walt said someone's got baseball with their kid. Like that to me is a good commitment to not be here and watch the recording later. But you have all chosen to be consistent. You've chosen to show up. And I feel like consistency is the number one missing ingredient when I talk to anybody who's struggling to achieve whatever level of success they want to achieve. And so, I want to congratulate you first and foremost for being here. And if you're watching this on the video because you had a commitment, congratulating you as well. And then I want to thank the loan officers who have taken the time to lead you all through this, because again, it's a big commitment for them. They're just as busy as you are. We've got people tuning in from vacation, and I love that level of commitment. So I feel a little bit when I talk about it, I'm preaching to the choir, right? I'm actually talking to the 10% of you who've made it and not the 90% who haven't. But just know, you should celebrate yourself. You should thank yourself for that. And I think when you look at the loan officers who brought you here, again, I don't know if you're doing business with those loan officers or not. I certainly hope you are, right? I hope that if you got invited by a loan officer who took the time to invest in you and to realize that, hey, this was a good opportunity for you, that hopefully you'll give them a shot at your next transaction, and that you will figure out why they're the leaders of the mortgage industry. And I would say that, it's embarrassing to me because I know some of the loan officers who aren't here. I know some of the loan officers who started on this journey, and I feel like, gosh, what an example is that to the real estate partners that they're trying to support when they didn't even show up. And, again, I'm all about commitment. You would find one of the first times I taught Win by Noon, I picked up my old black notebook that I used to carry around with me and schedule stuff. And I just opened up to a page to look at what did my week look like. During that week, did I break my Win by Noon philosophy? And, there was that Thursday I was on a field trip, it said, that was a commitment. I had a huge commitment as a dad of 3 daughters to make sure that I was on every field trip that I could be on. And then I learned how to build a system, because I think part of what makes people consistent is having a system. And I built a system that allowed me to be consistent, and so that my business actually continued to thrive when I was off doing things like on a field trip. That's kind of my setup for it. Walt, what else did you want me to make sure that I address as I kick everybody off?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I do want to say 2 things. One, Deborah, if you watch this and go to fix the recording, please go back to where Todd said that I watched the Barbie movie this weekend. Please just erase that. Second, more importantly, you guys are here because of Todd. I want to drive that home. You guys are here because of Todd. Todd actually he interviewed Jimmy Burgess years ago, which inspired me then to do the CMA Day Challenge. And so he's really the brainchild behind the CMA Day Challenge, which then gave us the opportunity to this is the 4th one that I've done. I've been able to grow it upon that. But those of you that I've invited received the poster that Todd built and that. And so it's been great. And it's very interesting to watch. It's always very interesting to watch. We did a TCA Day Challenge, which is the total cost analysis through Mortgage Coach, years ago. And we had, what do we have on that, Todd? Like six or 8 loan officers at the start. And I think I know I was the final one. Was there another one with me? I don't remember.
I don't even think so. I mean, and I think that speaks to you, Walt, and your consistency, and super grateful that you brought everyone together here for sure.
Yeah, and it goes to just following those daily disciplines. I think just following those daily disciplines, when you make a commitment, then just follow through. And I know, as we've seen huge success. We're over, last count that I had was over $600,000 worth of gross commissions that have been created from CMAs that have been sent out due to the challenge, that have created listing appointments that then have created listings. And I'm curious to know if those have sold at this point, but over $600,000 worth of gross commissions, from this challenge alone. And that's from this challenge alone. We've got Heath that's on here who has started this challenge with his loan officers. And so he's doing a CMA Day Challenge. And then we've got another friend of mine in Texas that has started a challenge. And last I heard with him, he was 3 weeks into the challenge, and they already had 4 listings that were created, and 1 buyer that was created. So, it's those daily disciplines. And sometimes, again, as I started off, we may not want to hear certain things. And that's why I love Todd, because he just tells me how it is. But it's those things. I don't know how difficult it is to do a CMA. I can't imagine that it's very difficult unless you have a very difficult property. But I know that those are the things, like, with our past clients, getting in touch with our past clients, speaking to our past clients. I know a lot of people have a tendency not to do that. This is a great opportunity to be able to do that, to be able to get with our past clients and be able to talk to them and it's unsolicited, sending it out. So, so you can share some more insights, Todd, and then we can go into really the things that we've learned throughout the period of time, go into some questions and answers. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's sort of talk about this consistency piece, right? So there's a couple of things I think that are important to remember, right? Number one is it's the whole idea of committing to something. And I use that word a lot, but I don't use it lightly. And I use that also as my most powerful script that I have. So my most powerful script for me. So if you wouldn't have guessed it by now, the philosophy of win by noon is to do your most important activities first before you get distracted by everything else. And what I found is that when I would tell somebody, hey, you know what, I'm busy at that time, or I've got an appointment with another client, or whatever I was coached to say, someone said, well, just say you're assisting another client because you're always at least thinking about assisting another client. I always felt disingenuous. So I came up with the script of, I have a commitment at that time. And that I did have a commitment. The commitment was to lots of people. It was to myself partially. It was to my family partially, who I was trying to provide for. It was to my realtor partners who had referred me clients who I was supposed to be following up with consistently. It was to my clients who I said I was going to follow up consistently. It was to my team. It was to lots of people, but I could say, I've got a commitment at that time. Hey, would 2 o'clock work? Hey, would tomorrow work? And what I found is that over 95% of the time that I used that script, the person said to me, you know what, Todd? Yeah, I can meet at 2 tomorrow. Or, you know what, I can do it 3 o'clock on Friday. And so I think just think about that one script. I'm very conscious of the words that I use. May not sound like it because I say and ah, and I do all those things you're not supposed to say as a speaker. However, I'm very conscious of the words that I use. I'm an exactly what to say certified trainer. So if you haven't read Phil Jones' book, Exactly What to Say, it's a great conversation starter, especially the version around real estate with regards to ways to continue a conversation, not necessarily control it or change someone's mind, but maybe change someone's perspective. And so the whole idea to me is how do I remind myself when I get off track that I need to protect my time, do my most important things. So when I first talked to Jimmy Burgess about what he was doing, I was struck by a couple of things. Number one is he set a goal that he was going to do a CMA a day for 90 days. And then he had a little asterisk there. It was 90 days that I'm working, whatever days I'm working. So when I interviewed him and he said he did 72 or 71, whatever his number was of CMAs in that 90-day period, my first thing was, wait a second, you didn't do a CMA a day. But he said, oh no, it was a CMA a day for every day that I was working. And so number one is he made a commitment to himself. He set a goal, right? And so that way he could track the goal, right? You have to have that number that you're going for. And again, you all hopefully have done a CMA a day or whatever goal you set up for yourself in order to get here. The other thing that he said was, if I knew I wasn't going to be working a particular day or I knew I was going to be busy, I batched them together, right? He talked about in one particular case, a condo complex where he said, hey, I just looked to see what other people in that condo complex I could send an unsolicited CMA a day to. And what I loved about it was the fact that he literally was recording something. It didn't take anything from the person he was sending it to. They had to do nothing but open his email. And I also love the fact that he had huge success, and I actually feel like you could sharpen his approach. Now, you guys can all tell me if you think I'm wrong or you think that I'm a jerk for saying it, but one of the things he said was, unless somebody opened up the email, which he was tracking, right, the opens on it, unless they opened it up a few times, he didn't follow up with them. Well, I would follow up with 100% of the people that I took the time to send a CMA to. And then he didn't really build any follow-up system after that to follow up with them, even though he got over $5.5 million worth of commission or sold more than $5.5 million worth of property the next year from people he had sent stuff to the previous year. And so I think there is a lesson there in what that follow-up could look like and, building that in, and we can talk about that as we go. But ultimately, it's this whole idea of one is setting the goal and then making sure as you go along that you're tracking it. And then if you need to batch it. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know what, I'm gonna record 10 CMAs this morning because I've got time. I got 2 or 3 hours or whatever it's going to take you to do the CMAs, and then get them out. And then I think one of the pieces about it that I struggle with oftentimes is being a perfectionist. And just like Walt, I don't exactly know how long it would take to make an excellent CMA. I'm assuming if it's in a community where all the houses are really similar, it might be easier. And if it's out in the rural area where, there's all different sizes of land and all different times they were built and custom homes, it's going to be harder. But, again, I believe when I listened to Jimmy's CMAs, and I probably watched 7 or 8 of his different CMAs that he presented, he would say, hey, here's your range that I think it could be. And if I just was able to talk to you or get 5 minutes in your home, I could tell you how accurate I am. And so he's also given himself permission to be wrong. In fact, I think it's good to be wrong, because what you want is you want the person who's opening it to say, you know what, that's so wrong. I got to call up Walt and talk to him about this crappy CMA he sent me because it's off. I don't actually think it's a bad thing to be off, because it helps create the engagement. And so engagement's another word that I really like, because ultimately that's what you want. You want basically when the person's going to go list their house in 6 months or 6 years to remember that you're the realtor that's been adding value to them all along. A perfect example of that is, so I run a mortgage team. The team, we've had it for about 11 years, done over $1 billion worth of transactions. And I not involved in the day-to-day of doing loans anymore. But I lead the team. We've got a daily huddle, which is going on right now that I'm not on. And I'm on that huddle 3 days a week, and I hear stories. And so a recent story was a client who we work with a new home builder, and they bought from the new home builder a couple of years ago. And as we discussed early on, if you were part of the people who were early, I live in Arizona and it's hot here. And so this couple, Mikey and Lacey, Mikey is an air conditioning guy, and he's tired of crawling in hot Arizona attics. And so he's got this crazy idea to move back east, where they've never even visited until last week. And so he called the loan partner who's doing all my loans these days and said, hey, we're thinking about moving. And they called him because his job is to consistently check in with clients once a year to check in, to let them know how they are. And again, a lot of loan officers are scared to call their clients because they have, in this case, a 2.99% interest rate. And they only want to call people who they can actually do refinances for and get transactions from. And so in this case, he said, or she said, it was Lacey who he spoke to, that they're thinking about moving. And he said, oh, awesome. Hey, love, he looked it up in our CRM and saw that they bought a new home with our builder. He wasn't part of their transaction. And he saw that they had a realtor who had brought them to the builder, because some people wander into builders, as you know, unrepresented, shame on them. And they said, oh yeah, I called her and left her a message. I haven't heard back from her. So what did Shay do? Shay said, you know what, I've got a great realtor who specializes in your area. Would you mind if I make the referral? And that realtor called me yesterday from the open house at their house he was listing. He was very excited to have a $560,000 listing that was referred to him by our team. Ironically, when Shay needed a CMA for that client, this is the realtor he reached out to. He made the promise of, hey, I'll send you this. If you can send me the CMA, if they choose to list, I'll make the introduction to you. And so it was a great opportunity for Shay, because doing our consistent role is what our team has to do, and doing the follow-up, making an introduction of helping, just like you all have all benefited from, who've done CMAs during the challenge. And so I think the number one thing is to remember that going forward, hopefully this will be part of what you do, right? When I first started speaking to realtors, I would say, hey, how many of you, have clients who go to Zillow? And no one wanted to raise their hand and admit that, but they go to Zillow to get a Zestimate because they're looking for the value of their home in absence of having that provided by their real estate professional. And so I think it's just a great opportunity as you guys have gone through this. And I don't need to convince you of the fact that you've been participating now for 3 months. What I want to convince you of is that you should just build this into your business, your daily routine going forward, whether it's going to be batching in, doing 5 of them once a week, whether it's going to be, hey, let me just spend a little bit of time 3 days a week doing it, whatever you set as your goal, I would continue to do it. And you can continue to do an update for someone who you already did it for. They're going to want to see it, because I promise you they're going to Zillow or wherever they're going to go online and look at an online estimate from a robot. And they're going to think that's tracking the value of their home. And so they want to hear from you, and they want to have that engagement. And so the key with some of this is, there's a thing called Parkinson's law, and Parkinson's law was back from the early 50s. The guy's name was Cyril Northcott Parkinson. And what he did was a study, which I think you would all feel like you've lived. And it's the whole idea that activities expand to fill the time available. So if I said, I've got an hour to do a CMA today, it's going to take me an hour. If I said I have 10 minutes to do a CMA today, I can probably knock it out in 10 minutes. I kind of liken it to the day before vacation miracle, right? We have this big to-do list that we've had for 2, 3, 4 months. And all of a sudden we get to the day before vacation. We're like, crap, I can't leave town or leave country or wherever you're going without finishing these things, and you miraculously get it done. And so what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you're setting a time frame for yourself in addition to the goal, right? Is, hey, can I get these things done? And so my story about Win by Noon is that I was a pretty successful loan officer. I was closing 400 transactions a year. And I'd done that for 3 years straight. And it was, I mean, kind of exciting. You know, I was one of the top 1, 2, 3 loan officers in my company. I was a top 50 loan officer in the country. It was good income, but for me personally, I had set a goal that I was going to be $100 million producer. And I already said it, not everyone wants to be a $100 million producer. Some people want to be a $20 million producer, or a $10 million producer, or a $50 million producer, whatever that number is. But I'd set that as like the goal. That was the North Star where I was shooting. And when I did my analysis on it, because I felt like I spent 3 years flying by the seat of my pants, and I didn't really take time to look at what I had done, what was working and what wasn't working. And what I found was what wasn't working was the days where I got stuff done were dramatically different from the days that I didn't. I mean, we all know what we have to do, right? We got to follow up with leads, right? We got to follow up with our database. In your case, you got to be doing CMAs, right? There's things that you have to do every day. And there's things that you need to do. You got to keep people up to date on any transactions that you have going. You know, there's parts of your daily life that, you know, you've got to do. And what happened is that the days where I had meetings in the morning, or the days where I allowed somebody to interrupt my morning, were the days where I didn't get it done. And the days where I was just locked down, got it done, typically where I started earlier, because then I had time as a barrier. I got it all done. And so all I did was that next year was I just blocked my calendar from 8:30 to 11:30. Now, some people say, well, it's not Win by 11:30, Todd. Well, Win by Noon sounds a whole lot better than Win by 11:30. And all I did was 2 things. Number one is I did the theme days I was already doing. And then number 2 is I blocked my calendar till 11:30. And I was kind of a chicken. I had to hide. I dropped my daughter Giselle off at school at 8:29. And it sounds really weird, but Giselle's got really severe OCD. And for her, like, the time mattered, and we didn't go in. School started at 8:30. If we walked to the door at 8:28, we got there at 8:29. It was too early to go to school. So at 8:29, she was dropped. 8:30, I was back in my car, and I would go hide. I hid at the burrito shop or one of the 2 coffee shops or restaurants near my office, so I could protect myself from everybody who would interrupt me. But it was kind of crazy. And without boring you with the rest of the details of the story, it got to the end of the year, and it was a flat year in interest rates. It was a flat year in sales in Arizona. It was a flat year for us on acquisition of new realtor partners. We didn't get a big builder or some whale of a team that started referring us business, but business went up 44%, closed 551 units that year, 113 million. And so I busted through this goal that I couldn't hit before, this ceiling of complexity, by just protecting my morning and doing the things that I knew I had to do, number one. And then embarrassingly, they were things I told everyone I did, and I did do them. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't do them consistently, right? I mean, I think we've all had something that we've written down on a napkin, or we thought we could remember, that someone called us on later, and we were like, ooh, I forgot to do that, right? I mean, for a loan officer, it was like I'd write down on a napkin that Walt was a referral, and he referred me Dixie for, getting a mortgage. And I called Dixie. I left her a voicemail, maybe. And then Walt's like, hey, did you get a hold of Dixie? I'm like, no, not yet. Let me call her right now. And I call her, and I get a hold of her miraculously. And then I get her loan going, but I lost, a day or a week or whatever it was from when I got that referral. And so when I said I've got a commitment to the client, I did, because I think I'm pretty good when I did loans, right? I thought that they deserved my advice. My advice matters, just like the loan officers who are on this call, their advice matters. I had a commitment to that realtor. That realtor gave me a lead that was going to potentially pay their bills, and I dropped the ball on it. And so I just became a better partner. My conversion rates went up. And then, kind of the rest is history, because now I've got, thousands of loan officers and realtors around the country who follow the system, right? You don't need the planner that Walt showed to do the system. You just need to actually do the system of saying, I've got a commitment at that time, and blocking whatever amount of time you need. I have a lot of realtors who actually don't block every morning, but they block 2 or 3 mornings a week to do their most important priorities. And they've told me that's been really successful for them. And so I just think through what it is you could do differently. But I would say the 2 things you could do every day is call your leads who haven't converted, because the more times you call them, we all know the more likely they are to convert, or at least tell you to go away, which is good because then you don't have to follow them anymore. But more likely they're going to say, oh gosh, I've been meaning to call you. I've just been really busy. And then the other is again, these times to reach out proactively to your database. I'm certainly not the real estate expert because I've never been a real estate agent, but I've coached now thousands of agents. And what I do know is that the ones who stay in touch with their database are the ones who have had, great success. And so I would just encourage you to think about that as you go forward. You've had lots of great advice from great realtors, right? I know Spring and I know Jason Mitchell, who were on earlier. I mean, they're great leaders. They're great at their craft. They were great before they became team leaders. Now they've become a team leader. They may not be doing those other things day to day. Their roles have changed, but they're very consistent about those pieces. And so I think as you kind of look ahead, what I would encourage you to do is just do a quick audit, right? At some point, best time is going to be right when you get off this call. Second best time would be maybe tomorrow morning, where you can just carve off some time and just look back at your calendar, right? Literally open up your phone and look at it and see, well, what were my days like? Like, where did I feel like I crushed it? And what was that day like? And then think about it. Is there, a home inspection coming up that you've got scheduled for 8 a.m. that maybe you could bump to the afternoon so that at 8 a.m. you can do the things like make a CMA or do something else that you would do consistently. And then look at that to go forward and schedule those things out. And for me, I scheduled 3 hours a day. I told you 8:30 to 11:30. Eventually, I made it back into my office. My team saw what I was doing. I could put a do not disturb sign up on the door. Certainly during, COVID, it's been different, right? I mean, right now, this is a beautiful fake background of my real office down the street, but I'm standing in my bedroom at home, broadcasting to you. And so it's even more distractions that I have now. And all I do is shut my door. And my daughter and my wife know when I'm shut the door. They might open every once in a while and see me talking to the computer like this. They know, to give me my space and do that. It's that whole do not disturb thing. They'll give me my space. And I think other people will if you just tell them what's going on. But I think the first thing is what's the goal? The second thing is what's the commitment to get to the goal? And then the third thing is think about that Parkinson's law. Schedule the time and, maybe can I shrink that time down just a little bit? And I think the last thing I would say is don't be afraid to do something, say something crazy, right? Like, I had a loan officer who I talked to, and he said he's been terrible at this, right? He hasn't done the TCAs, the total cost analysis, or the annual mortgage review for his client. And he said, okay, I'm going to call. It was a number just north of 200 past clients in the month of July. And here's someone who hasn't been doing it at all. And he says he's going to call 200. And I'm like, all right, great. How many days a week are you going to work? And he's like, well, I'm going to work 5 days a week. Awesome. Okay, let's assume 4 weeks, right? That's 20 days into 200, right? That's 10 clients a day. Are you going to be able to do that? I asked him, right? Because again, I'm a jerk. I have to, poke the bear a little bit and ask those questions. And he said, absolutely. I said, awesome. When are you going to do it? And then he paused. And he said, I'm going to do it in the morning, right? He had to think about it. He hadn't thought about it yet. I said, awesome, right? Good choice since I'm the win by noon guy. I said, great. What time in the morning? And he said, I'm going to block from 9 to 11. I said, great. And I said, where are you going to be when you do that? And the reason I asked him that is because specificity matters. I wanted to think through, okay, am I going to be in my office at home? Am I going to be at the kitchen table at home? Am I going to be in my office? Am I going to go to Starbucks and do this? But the specificity mattered. So I had him go into his calendar and block the 2 hours. So that way, if somebody called him and he had to pull out his phone and say, hey, can you meet with me at 10 a.m. on Thursday? He would look and see that that's his block. It's just, I don't know how he labeled his. I just labeled mine call block. And he proactively scheduled the time to do it. And he's sending me a text every Friday, letting me know. And so far, he's talked to more than 20 clients a week. And I would have thought that was a very big goal for him, but he's so committed by it. He's so driven by it. You know what? And I'm sure that some of you have that same desire to do more production, right? He's been in the business, in this case, about 15 years, having the worst year of his career, worse than the financial crisis. And he's kind of stressed out about it financially. And so all it's taking is a little more action. And now 3 weeks in, he's consistent with it. And so really, I think that's the kind of the center of what I want to talk about. I don't want to drag this on and feel like I'm just lecturing you all on how to be more productive. I think if I can make you understand it's not that difficult if you are proactive and you schedule it, if I can make you understand that you already know it, you've already felt it before, you've already been frustrated, right? I used to start off all of my talks of how many of you have gotten to, how many of you woke up in the morning and created an awesome and important to-do list and gotten to the end of the day and realized you didn't accomplish your most important priorities, right? And then I lost the whole audience at that point. No one wanted to make eye contact with me. They're like, this guy's a jerk. I can't believe he called me out at the start of his speech. But I can tell you I'm in the same boat. So I switched it up and said, hey, like you, like many of you, I've gotten up in the morning, created a very awesome to-do list with important things on it, and got to the end of the day and realized I didn't accomplish my most important priorities. How would it be helpful if I help you all figure out how to make sure you can accomplish more in any given day? And then they would all raise their hand, and I got them to be engaged. And so I think that the interesting part, again, about productivity is you already intuitively know it, but I think it's these little reminders that you need for yourself that'll help you get there, and then maybe just some strategies around it. So again, the strategy that worked the best for me now and thousands of people is I've got a commitment at that time. And again, don't say it boldly. Don't feel like you have to make an excuse like, oh, my commitment is I'm taking my daughter to to her basketball game. No, I just have a commitment at that time. People respect you. They respect that commitment. Pick the number of CMAs you're going to do, or client conversations, or whatever that's going to be. And then just know it's more confusing now than ever for your clients. I talked to one realtor last week. I still talk to more realtors in a week than most loan officers I know. I talked to 51 last week, I think is my number. I record that in my planner. And one told me that she's hesitant to call her clients who bought new construction last year, whose houses have gone down in value slightly. And I said, well, don't you think they're worried about that too? And she said, huh, all right. And so she sent me a text over the weekend that she had reached out, had a great conversation with somebody who was super freaked out about it. And then she explained to him what's happened with the market, how the market stabilized, how when rates come down, we're going to see more buyers, and that'll drive prices back up. And how excited the client was that she had reached out. And here she was hiding from that client, and that client was actually excited to hear from her. Now, it would have been a better story if she would have said, oh yeah, and they referred their neighbor who's going to sell their house. That didn't happen, but I promise you that person's going to come across someone who has a real estate question that's going to get referred back to that agent. All right, so what questions or thoughts do you guys have on that? Is there anything else that you all can think of that would help somebody here be more productive that I haven't discussed, or anything that stood out to you?
Go ahead and pop your questions there in the chat, please. And also, as I think about the challenges, I think about each speaker. We had Todd Duncan talking about really connecting with your past clients. We've got Spring talking about that, about knowing your numbers. Justin or Jason Mitchell was talking about really thinking outside the box. So where can you generate business from? Todd talked about the same thing. Laura Gillot. Laura Gillot, she's here in Oregon. She's in a town of 9,000 people and is the #1 agent in Oregon. And she just had her big event, Pork and Tunes yesterday, or Pig and Tunes, Pork and Tunes, whatever it is. Actually had it Friday or Saturday at her house. And it's an event where she gets all of her clients, all of her past clients to come, and that, as we reflect upon, other talks, there was an event that I was at Friday, and one thing that we were talking about was working with financial planners and working with attorneys and that, and we talked about terminology with those individuals. You want to make sure that you aren't talking about past clients, because they're not past. They're your current clients. They're clients that you keep moving forward with. And again, as we think about Renee, if you're not reaching out to your clients, somebody else is. Todd and I, we were at an event in Vegas back in March. And this one loan officer that we know that she was speaking, Kelly Zitlow up there, and Kelly had talked about a study that the Stratmore Group had done, and 86%, it was a study, I want to say it was 13,000 realtors that were 13,000 realtor clients that were surveyed. And I don't remember if there were loan officer clients in there or not, but we're in the same boat. And they asked two questions. One was, would you work with your realtor that you worked with previous? And this was after 1 year after closing. And 86% astoundingly said yes. I mean, just yes, of course we would. 86%. Awesome. And the second question was, great, who was that realtor? And 74% could not answer that question. So that's why I love the CMA Day Challenge. And that's why I love doing a CMA, just touching base with your clients, because we always want to know the value. And we can always go to Zillow, we can always go to Redfin, we can go to realtor.com. I went to those 3 sites that over this weekend, and I was just checking, trying to see, okay, what's the value of my house? And, and we're talking, there was about $150,000 spread between those 3. So what's the value of my house? Are there any realtors that I know that could do a CMA for me? Maybe. I'm just joking. But then one thing Jimmy did change this time around, Todd, is that I asked him on, you do the CMA, you send it out unsolicited, you do it through BombBomb or something like that where you can track it. And then I know in the past he has waited until it's been open 3 times. When it was open 3 times, he then opened it, or he called them. And I think that was a different market when he did that. Now he said he would follow up on 100% of them 3 to 4 days after it was sent, whether it was open or not. So he did change that up a little bit. And I think that's so true. I mean, if you don't follow up with them, they're not going to follow through with you. If we don't have any questions, one thing I'd love to do is Heath, to add what Todd said, I think accountability is one thing that has helped me stick to the commitments and reach my goals.
I didn't use the A word for a reason, but I would certainly say that the reason I've always had a coach is for accountability, right? And it's that one thing that I think everybody needs, but nobody wants. And I think self-accountability is hard. It's the one thing that the planner does for me. I don't have my coach hold me accountable to certain things, and I use my planner to record those activities and track the results. And then I do hold myself accountable to that, right? I mean, I said I talked to 51 realtors last week. That's my minimum standard. My minimum standard is 50 a week. And that was my lowest week so far since I set that goal of 50. And guess what? When I didn't have a goal of 50, guess what? I didn't talk to 50, right? When I didn't have that as the standard I was going to do, I talked to 20 to 30 a week, which was still a lot, but it wasn't getting the results that I was after for my team. And so one of the things that I would encourage you all to do, if accountability is something you want, right? Again, I already said no one wants it, but I would look to the loan officer who invited you here. I would encourage the loan officers here to set a follow-up call with all of you. And I would encourage you to set an appointment with them to have a conversation. I would say in person is best. Over Zoom is second best with your cameras on. And then on the phone is third best. Because again, I want to see somebody's eyes when I'm talking about accountability. I know that's bad, but I just find that when I'm sitting there and I can see how do you react when I talk about difficult things, that's helpful for me to understand what I'm going to need to do to get you across the line. Everyone needs a different level of accountability. I know some super disciplined people. I truly have coached some of the most disciplined loan officers in the country. And then I've also coach some of the least disciplined loan officers in the country. And I fell into that category before. I created the system so that I could actually be successful and keep myself from myself and my lack of, there's a bird, like distractions that get in my way. So I would encourage you on the conversation with the loan officer to ask her or him how to help you be accountable, right? And maybe pick it around one thing, right? And it could just be around the thing we've been talking about since the start, CMAs. And I would just say, hey, between now and the end of the quarter, I like to look at things in a 3-month run. But you could even say, hey, just here's what my commitment is for now and the end of the year. Because I think it's going to be a tough year for the rest of the year. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a miraculous amount of inventory coming on, and any of you have markets with a lot of inventory or a lack of inventory. I think if you're in a market that has inventory, then that hasn't been selling. I don't think that interest rates are going to 3% and they're going to all sell overnight. So, it's going to be a little bit of a battle between now and the end of the year. And so, maybe that's just with that loan officer, hey, hold me accountable to 1 CMA a day, 3 a week, whatever that number is going to be for you. And then I would encourage you to set up what's the reporting mechanism for that. Because if there's no reporting mechanism, then it probably is not going to happen. So like on my team, I mentioned there's a daily huddle. On that daily huddle, every loan officer on the team has to report out their numbers. Here's how many people I called yesterday. Here's how many people I talked to yesterday. Here's how many people I met with. So those are the activities. And then also, hey, here's the leads I got, here's the applications I got, here's the pre-quals I issued, and here's my loans that are closed. And so they're actually having to report their activity. And when you have to do that, it's interesting. It's part of their job. They don't have a choice. And they show up and they actually do it. And it's weird. Don't be surprised by this, but the loan officers that actually make the most calls and talk to the most people are the ones that have the biggest businesses right now. And I know that's true for real estate agents as well. And so it's a difficult thing, but I would encourage you to, when the loan officer calls you to ask for feedback on this event, to accept their invitation for an event, for a follow-up meeting. And then I already said it earlier, but if you haven't given them a shot at your business, I would give them a shot at your business as well. And again, there's a strategy that I use when I teach called the wedge strategy. And I shouldn't say it to y'all because you're realtors that we want as loan officers to create this wedge. But I can tell you that you probably, if you're not sending your business to the loan officers on this call, it's because you've got a great long-standing relationship with another loan officer. But that's okay. What I would suggest is just the business that you're getting with the CMA Day Challenge. And from those clients you're re-engaging with, at least commit the next lead from one of those clients to there. So that's them drawing a wedge between you and your other loan officer. I think that's an opportunity that they've earned at this point, and I would love you to explore that. So I appreciate you bringing up accountability, Heath. I could talk about accountability for hours. That's kind of what I get up on my pedestal. So I will just stop at this point, but just know you probably all could use a slightly higher level of accountability. You probably don't want to pay a coach right now for that accountability. If you have a coach and they're not holding you accountable, then I would maybe look for a different coach or ask them for a higher level of accountability. And then I would absolutely lean on the loan officer who brought you here for that. They would love that. I promise you.
Stephen, you had a comment. Do you want to leave it in the chat, or do you want to unmute yourself and share your comment with us?
Just real quick, Heath Goodrich invited me into this, and it's been successful to me. We're talking about accountability, but Heath always said you need to know your numbers. And my response rate on the CMAs I'm sending out right now are hovering at 61%. I don't have a lot of past buyers. Most of what I focused on were listings. And 2 active listings came out of this listing referral, and I got a buyer referral out of that. So my numbers now are at 1.85 million in property value.
Awesome.
I mean, big success, but I'm looking for how can I get to others? So I'm using Zoom. It's a little more difficult. I think after the presentation on BombBomb, it's a better place for me to be. But I send it out as an email initially. I followed up with a text, and then 3 days later, I follow up with a phone call if I haven't heard back from the people. And that's created a response. I don't ask for business, but I do ask them if they know of anybody. I'm looking for a lead of anybody else who might benefit from the CMA, and I've gotten several of those that I'm sending out. And I went to my broker, and I talked to my broker. I said, look, you've been in business a long time. I've only been with him now about 3 years. And I said, do you have past buyers sitting in a database somewhere that I might be able to reach out to and do these CMAs? So I'm building now leads from my broker's database. And I just thought that might be helpful to some of the others out there.
That
I
is
appreciate
huge.
this whole program.
It's
That is huge.
so awesome.
So congrats on the 1.85 million. Congrats on tracking your numbers. It's funny because I normally talk about that. And again, just like accountability, I don't think people really want to do that. But I think anytime we have success stories. So if anyone else has a success story and you want to unmute yourself, this would be a great time for that, or at least put it in the chat. But I just don't know too many times where I could get a 61% response from people. And then I think that you kind of nailed something else there, Stephen, is that we also sometimes struggle with who to call, right? Call reluctance comes from, I don't know what to say, and I don't know who to call. And you know what to say. They want to know about the value of their home, and they really just want to know the status of the housing market in there. And they need that reminder from you that what you read on CNBC and what's happening here in our local little town or local big town is different, right? And it is different in different ways. And so I think that's super important. The other suggestion that I would have, I did a group coaching program for loan officers earlier this year for the first quarter. And some of them were brand new and didn't have anyone in their database. And I just said, well, gosh, go to your phone, right? You all have a phone and it's got, whoops, there we go. There's my phone. It's got hundreds of people in there probably that you know. And I just said, hey, real quick, this is a business call, right? Hey, who do you know who has a mortgage? Actually, let me start that different. How I'd probably rescript it for you all, right? Hey, it's Todd. I don't know if you remember, or hey, I know you know that I'm a realtor. One of the things that I'm finding when I'm talking to my clients about the value of their home in the market is how surprised they are from what they're hearing in the news, what they're seeing on Zillow, and what the actual value of their home is. Would it be okay if I prepared for you what's called a CMA comparative market analysis? And then you got to be quiet and have that super uncomfortable pause while they think about it. And I think they would all say yes. I had these new loan officers do it, and they did 2 calls. The first call was if they would let them, I know you own a house, would you let me practice doing an annual mortgage review with you? And it was like over 98% of the people said yes. Every once in a while, someone doesn't want to have a friend or a family member know their financial condition. And then the follow-up call was awesome. Hey, did you use a realtor when you bought your home? Yes or no? And if they said yes, awesome. Would you mind doing a quick text introduction between me and your realtor? And the crazy part was it was less than 40% of people who actually remembered who their realtor was. And kind of a side secret thing was I taught them to say when they said, I don't remember who my realtor was. I said, well, what if you type realtor into your phone or real estate? Would they come up in your contacts? And they all said no. And so think about that when you send your contact card to somebody, it should say realtor or real estate agent, or maybe both. So that way, if they happen to forget your name, they can actually look you up in their contacts by realtor or real estate. I can tell you that my mortgage team, everyone's contact card that they send out says, mine says Todd, mortgage guy, Bookspan. And so if I send something out on behalf of my mortgage team, it always says that. And I tell people, if you forget my name, don't forget that you're looking for a mortgage. You can always find me that way. So just another kind of couple ideas of maybe to pick up the phone to find more people to send CMAs to. And then again, I already said it, I think you can update people. You don't have to do a full CMA every quarter, but I think a quarterly check-in isn't too much for clients. And I think that you could rerun a new CMA for sure once a year, but I think some people might appreciate it every 6 months. And I do know some realtors who I got going on the CMA a day in our local market who send out an updated CMA every quarter. They're using some type of software to do that. So they say it's pretty easy. They're having great luck with that. You may think that's too much, but maybe something in between is better for you. Does anyone else have success stories like Stephen?
Yeah, I want to pull Heath in here real quick. You're still here, right, Heath?
Yeah, I'm here.
I see him.
So would you mind talking a little bit about Brian's success? And I mean, you've had a couple of realtors that have had, besides Stephen, that have had great success as well.
Yeah, so there was probably 3 or 4 of the agents that I invited to be on the call that actually took the strategy and I think had the clarity and the confidence in the strategy to implement it into their business. And so of those 3, I think there was over $3 million worth of business generated. And it wasn't even a CMA a day. Some of them, it took them a few weeks to kind of get going. But again, I think it just kind of gave them a goal and something to commit to in the time where they're not sure what to do next, maybe, or just needed something fresh in their business. The strategy gave them that. And yeah, it's been great feedback. And as you can see what Steve said, he had 1.85 million in new business that he generated directly from the video CMA. So it's been fantastic for a handful of my referral partners.
Hey, I'm gonna do a
Now-
quick commercial real quick before I got a hard stop at 9:30, Walt. But how many of you are familiar? Raise up your hand, those of you on video, with the legislation with regards to your commissions potentially changing over time. All right, some of you are. So there's already some MLSs in the country who are changing how, because of the lawsuits that are out there. One of the MLSs just settled with their lawsuit. None of the brokers did, Remax, Keller Williams, all the other people getting sued. But one of the MLSs just paid a few $1 million out as damages to buyers based on the fact that, or sellers based on the fact that they had to pay the buyer's commission. And then, so there's lots of conversation on that. I'm going to throw a Zoom link in here. I'm leading a call with two of the smartest guys that I know with regards to this specific topic. And tomorrow, and it's going to be on Zoom. I just threw the link in there if anyone wants to jump on. But I think it's super fascinating to know that your income in the future is potentially going to be regulated. And the people that I know who are following this all believe that they're going to have to fight for their buyer's agency commission in the future. And so I think there's going to be lots of good results. But if you're interested in hearing an update from some people who are pretty well plugged in, there's my plug on that. Sorry, Walt, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So yeah, and just, you guys get plugged in with Todd. Again, I mean, he's a wealth of information, wealth of knowledge. And I don't know of anybody else that likes to give more than Todd. He's a giver and really sheds light to a lot of information. I mean, today he shared a lot of great information with us. Things that we know that we need to be doing, things that we should be doing, and throughout this challenge, it's been one of accountability. It's been one of accountability as to whether you would attend just for the lecture series or whether you wanted to do the CMAs. Think back to Jimmy's comment, and Jimmy, look back to that original video of Jimmy Burgess when we first started May 15th. Jimmy shared a ton of ways to be able to generate business in this market and to be able to do CMAs. Go back to that one and relook at that. He also talked about, and I forget the exact number at this point, but it was every conversation, as he mapped it out, literally every conversation is worth $212, I think it was. So if you think of it that way, I mean, every conversation I have is worth $212. That it's not going to be one that you're going to close on a consistent basis. But when you're building those conversations up, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get a listing, that's a $10,000 paycheck to you. So anyway, Todd, thank you so much for attending or for coming on here, for wrapping us up. Really appreciate you, appreciate your heart. Thank you for your commitment, and thank you for giving me the idea of doing the CMA Day Challenge years ago. It's been very, very beneficial. For those of you that I have invited to the call, please do me a favor and stay. I've got one thing that I want to talk to you guys about here. Anybody else want to wrap anything else up? Anybody have any last comments? This is the last time we're together.
I'll just say you guys all rock. The fact that you're all here watching this live, and the few of you will watch the recording of this after a few months, big high five to you. Big high five to the mortgage leaders who brought you here. But really, you're the ones. You made it this far, and don't stop now. It's amazing to me how many times I've talked to someone who said, you know what, I did that thing when you did it, and I don't do it anymore. You owe it to yourself, right? Keep that commitment going. And like Walt said, you can always reach out to me. Find me on social media or wherever. I'm happy to help. You'll notice that I'm not a salesman. I'm a converser. I'm not a big time, yell at you lecturer. I'm just here to share with you what you already know, to try to encourage you to do the things you need to be doing. So thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone else. Really appreciate it. And let me know if I can be of help.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Walt.
Todd.
And thank you for all that attended. Congrats.
Exactly. You all, I mean, you made it. So yeah, so just keep it up. And again, those that I have, the realtors that I've invited here in my marketplace, please stay just a couple of minutes here. And I've got something special for you guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal.